Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots of interesting stuff breaking this morning, including we had to add a block into the show last night. Apparently, some classified documents were found at a former office space of President Biden. These were documents apparently from when he was vice president. Break all of that down for you. A little bit awkward, I would say.
I would
a little
say
bit
that,
awkward.
yeah.
At the same time, the rules package passed the House last night. And this was sort of the first big test of Kevin McCarthy's new speakership. That went through. I think he won by like 2 votes or something like that. So he only lost a few votes in the Republican caucus. And there is a surprising advocate for some of the changes that are included in this Kevin McCarthy speaker deal. So we'll tell you about that. We also have some pretty stunning new polling revealing Americans' priorities, how they are feeling about the state of the country. We've got some new Twitter files exposing Big Pharma and some major conflicts of interest with regard to media. Not that you will be shocked there. Prince Harry is making a shocking admission that somehow the media mostly ignored.
Yes, is being completely ignored.
Yeah,
we'll get to it.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. And also, you gotta love this. How many years are we post 2015, 2016 Russiagate? The media is finally admitting that at least one aspect of it was completely fake news.
Shocker.
Amazing. Yeah. Excited to have Yoan Grillo on the show. He's going to be giving us a report on what exactly is going on in Mexico. I am looking at the tech session, and Saagar is looking at Jordan Peterson. But before we get to any of that, live show.
Live show. Put it up there on the screen. Last couple of chances here, folks. February 3rd. Tickets are being booked, travel, accommodations, all of that. Send your food recommendations in. We are coming. We'll have a great show for all of you. We're going to do some fun stuff while we are down there in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Okay. Let's start with Biden. So, late news breaking last night. Well, let's put it up there on the screen. It turns out that 10 classified documents were actually removed from Joe Biden's vice presidential office found at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement while he was moving out of that office in 2017. The classified documents were actually found by Biden's own team in an internal review, presumably, Krystal, after the Mar-a-Lago raid in November and the general, public consternation about it. The Biden lawyers themselves were like, hey, maybe we should check our own archives. They did so. They found actually 10 documents with classified markings on them that were inside of their archives, removed from the White House while Joe Biden was the vice president. Now, according to Biden and his team, they have immediately returned those documents upon discovery to the Department of Justice. However, the Department of Justice itself has actually opened a review of the case. Attorney General Merrick Garland actually appointing a Trump appointee to a special prosecutor to actually review the entire case. So all of this a bit awkward and frankly embarrassing for the Biden administration, just because they made such a big deal of the Trump case. I mean, I would have to say, of course, what separates the two is not the possession of the classified documents itself, but with Trump, there appears to be, a concerted effort by Trump, his lawyers, and others to simply just not return the documents, not necessarily out of malice, but increasingly out of arrogance and incompetence by basically saying these are my documents, which not really how presidential records work. But I will say, I think it does validate one of the points that a lot of people who had defended him said, putting the obstruction aside. They're like, hey, I think a lot of these presidential libraries do have at least some sensitive documents. It also does raise a question broadly to me. Why do these people get to hang on to literally anything if they are matters of state? Why are they allowed to be at these libraries at all? Should they not just be purely in the possession of the National Archives? Maybe that's just a crazy thought. Just because you're president, I don't think that entitles you for all time to possession of your own files.
I think that's a good point. I think another point is that, obviously overclassification is a massive issue. So a lot of these, I don't know what these particular documents from Biden were. I don't know how secret they were, what highest classification marking, et cetera, was on them. But a lot of stuff that is technically classified is totally available in the public sphere and really shouldn't be classified. So that's an important thing to keep in mind here as well. I think your point about the difference between him and Trump's case is also, a valid one. Probably if Trump ends up being indicted on the document issue, it is more likely to be because of the obstruction than because he, accidentally or intentionally or whatever held onto these documents. At this point, there's all kinds of reporting about how they were going back and forth with the National Archives. For a while, it was productive, and then basically he decided, like, no, these are my documents. I'm going to stonewall. They apparently have some camera footage of him, like, moving boxes around and trying to conceal them. So that is probably going to be the bigger issue for Trump. But putting all of that aside, obviously this is a very bad look for the president. It's very awkward, given the concern and consternation about the documents that former President Trump was ultimately holding on to. There's another thing that, it's I guess a little bit of a side story here, but something that Ken Vogel was pointing out, which I think is worth noting. So these documents were found by Biden's own attorneys at the Penn Biden Center. And this is where he had this cushy gig during the offseason when he was not vice president and he was not yet running for president, where he made $900,000 over the course of just 2 years for a vaguely defined role that involved no regular classes and about 12 public appearances on campus. So this was a very cushy gig for him, where he apparently did basically nothing and earned almost $1 million and hung out with some classified documents in an office, is apparently what was ultimately going on here. So there's a lot of layers of exposing the political system and the way all of this ultimately works at work in the story.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, again, I don't know how we created this weird system where presidents and former officials feel entitled to their matters of state while they leave office, even though they're allegedly, at least, important to the American public, and then are then just allowed to create these insane centers where they get paid a ton of money and also, by the way, get to solicit private donations. This, like the Jeff Bezos giving $100 million to the Obama Library in Chicago. The fact that Obama, I believe, is like in consternation with some community activists in order to get some of the land for his own. But again, I don't even want to make it about them. My hometown, College Station, the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library is there. And again, like, you'll go there and you'll see like treasures, pieces of the Berlin Wall and jewels and other things that were given to President Bush while he was in office. And I was like, I don't really understand like why this stuff is all here, like who actually owns it. There just seems to be this quasi, almost like royal treatment that we give people, and that really just needs to go away completely.
There's one last piece that I want to add on to this, which is the timing of the disclosure that these documents were located, because apparently the documents were actually found like a week before the midterms.
Wow.
And then they waited a couple months till they, secured their election situation for this revelation to ultimately be made. I'm reading from a New York Times story here. They say the White House statement said that it is cooperating with the Department of Justice, but did not explain why Mr. Biden's team waited more than 2 months to announce the discovery of the documents, which came a week before the midterm congressional elections, when the news would have been an explosive last-minute development.
Yeah.
So also another little interesting note there.
That is so, just the level of corruption here.
Listen, y'all.
Unbelievable.
Lock them all up.
Yeah. It's just, look, takeaway is, yes, it is substantially different, at least legally, in terms of the way that it's being treated. But, on the substance, clearly he did the exact same thing. I guess just didn't have the idiocy to try and cover it up. And it's going to be embarrassing for him regardless, especially if Trump does get indicted. Expect to hear all about it on the Fox News channel and elsewhere.
Yes.
So get acquainted with the details,
and here
folks,
as well, guys,
and the timeline.
We're equal opportunity in terms of our coverage.
We've got to cover it. It's going to be an important story.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.